everyone. Thanks so much for joining. I am so thrilled you're here, and I'm so excited to have my amazing guests with me today, Dr. Calvin Lawrence. And first, I want to tell you about this live stream, Mental Backroads and Highways. In this live show, I interview incredible leaders who are trailblazing and pioneering for a better tomorrow in our homes, community, and globally. This live stream is part of the Two Mom is to Love community that focuses on different topics that I discuss in my upcoming book, Two Mom is to Love, Pioneering a New Kind of Motherhood. Mark your calendars. It will be coming out early 2025 in the summer of 2025 this year. So thank you so much for being a part of this. And without further ado, I want to introduce to you my special guest here, Dr. Calvin Lawrence. And Dr. Lawrence, he is married 34 years to his wife, Amanda. They have one adult son, Caleb, who is a recent graduate of Abilene Christian University. Dr. Lawrence is originally from Virginia and now resides in Texas. He earned his undergraduate degree from James Madison University and began his career as a teacher and coach. Calvin holds a master's degree from Texas Christian University and a postmaster's in administration from Texas Women's University. He also earned his doctorate while in Texas at Baylor University. Dr. Lawrence has over 41 years of proven experience and leadership at all levels. He is currently serving as the CEO of Calvin Lawrence Speaks, where he engages all types of audiences in motivation, diversity, and leadership practices. Learn more at calvinlawrencespeaks.com, which will be showing in the ticker below, and check out his new book, The Happy Leader, Relatable Stories of Influence and Hope. So thank you so much for being with us today, Calvin. It's an absolute pleasure.
Valerie, thank you for inviting me. You know, this was one of those nights I couldn't sleep because I just couldn't wait to get on your show. I'm finally here, and it's like, this is amazing, and I'm excited.
Oh, I'm so glad. I'm so glad. I am so excited to have you here because I just feel like you are just such an amazing person with such a great energy. And fun fact, I just have to tell our audience this, like, we connect a lot over some Texas things. I actually was in Dallas. I lived in Austin. I even have my Dallas picture here. I was going to have it hanging right in front of me, but I was having issues hanging it. So anyways, but I was very excited about that.
It's so cool. When you told me that you had taught for Texas Women's University, I'm like, that we got all these connections. And so you know exactly where I'm at. You know, all the stuff that goes on down here in Texas. It's kind of weird, kind of funky weather during this time of the year. And then it gets hot for a long time. So you know the spiel about Texas.
I do. I know the spiel. I know the blue bonnets that, like, you have to get your pictures in the blue bonnets in the spring. Do you have any?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, they're coming.
They're coming. Yeah, my husband went to Baylor. And so we can go on and on about Texas. I may have another Texas question for you later on, but
I'm ready for it.
But I want you to tell our audience, tell us about what your mission is. What led you to do this incredible work that you're doing, Calvin?
Well, Valerie, is a great question because a few years ago, I'll go back to almost before COVID hit us. So 2020-ish, 2019, I was really involved in some stuff. And then if everybody remembers, it was like we always have controversies in America, right? Well, there are a lot of controversies in the world, in America at the time. The Black Lives Matter movement, all this stuff was going on. And I'm like, I can't just do a one-time kind of like speech or write an article, because I wrote an article in the paper and I did something about bringing people together. And that's my mission. So I'm getting there. And so long story short, my wife said about that time, I was like, you just need to do your own thing. It's about that time. You've been in the field for a long time and you've always said you wanted to do something. And here's your opportunity. So that opportunity arose. In fact, when we started talking about the book a little bit later, the whole time I was thinking about the next piece of what I need to do with Calvin Lawrence Speaks, but it started then, and it started small because that's where I think you have to start a lot of times, right? You have to start small. And even if you had a big vision for the future, you got to start somewhere. And I did. I started just in my community, locally, trying to get the word out, trying to speak with groups, trying to ease racial tensions, because there were a lot of tensions, and just talk it through. It's like, we got to have these conversations. And the more I get to know you and to talk about relationship a whole lot, and we'll have some questions about that or some comments about that. It's about relationship. It's about knowing people, because we're more alike than we are different. And we all really are striving for the same thing. So why not? Let's strive together. If we strive together, man, we get to the place that we need to be a whole lot faster, a whole lot better.
Absolutely. I love that. And I so agree. We're so much more alike than we are different. And I love what you're doing. Now, Calvin, tell us, why did you become a teacher and a coach? I know that you've had so much vast experience with that, and I would love to learn more about what led you to do that, and also kind of where you started to do more of Calvin Lawrence Speaks as well from that transformation.
Gotcha. So I have to. This is a good opportunity for me to do a shout out to your career field, because my mom was a nurse. My dad was a blue collar guy. He didn't get a degree, but mom got a nurse back in the old days when they had the LPNs. I'll put it like that: LPNs as opposed to LVNs. You know the difference. And so I spent a lot of time around healthcare people. My sister, who did have the brain power and all this other stuff, went on to become an MD. I thought I was going to become a physical therapist. And this is another reason why when I'm in your presence, Val, I'm like, I want to just bow, because not only are you all the things you said, but you never talk about, you got a master's degree from Yale, Ivy League, premier. And so I don't even know if I'm that, but I'll go back. So for me, I had an issue with my science and my math. And I don't know if I can blame my counselors. I try to blame myself to some degree, but then I know there was some blame in terms of placements and stuff like that. I think schools hopefully do a better job than they did back then. I was an athlete, and I think they kind of let me slide because I was an athlete, and I didn't do those things that I needed to do to get myself ready once I got to college. So when I got to college and I realized I didn't have the foundation to do the other things I needed to do to get to physical therapy school, my fallback was, well, I'm taking the same classes, physical education. Always did have great coaches, great teachers around me. And that's in the book. And so I thought, well, that's a great career field. I've got already the background in that. I'm already taking the classes. So I went that route. Now I will throw this little caveat in. My best subject in school, in grade school, was history, but I got some bad advice from somebody who told me the only thing you can do with a history degree is be a politician or a lawyer. And at the time, my mind was a little bit crazy about that. So I didn't think, no, I don't want to be and I definitely don't want to be a politician. So coaching, teaching, I knew those people had a great impact on me. I thought if I could do the same thing, maybe pay it forward, I could do the same thing. And then if you think about it, last part of your question was the Calvin Lawrence Speaks part. And to get the message out, to reach masses and to kind of start to do what you want to do, a big part of that was, I guess the first audience that I really looked at was going back into my old career, because I'm comfortable with that group. I'm comfortable in the university level. I spent some time at the university level, spent a lot of money at some university that you just mentioned. And then of course the K-12. So that was my first audience, but really, I really want to take the message a little bit broader than that. And I think the book does a good job of that.
That's amazing. And it's so much I want to unpack there because I think that's so amazing. And but first, Calvin, tell us more about your book because we were talking just before we went live that you recently launched, which is super exciting. So
Right.
tell us more about it, where we can find your book and what's in there and what can we learn? Because I'm like
Right.
super excited to read it myself.
Hey Val, like so you're saying, you're such a nice person, by the way. And so Val and I were commiserating on how tough it can be to get that, especially that first book, man. You are trying to figure out all the do's and don'ts. You get all this advice. Hopefully you get good advice. Sometimes you don't get always good advice, and then you learn by experience, right? So the book, wow, it's like I did, and somebody asked me, well, was this a bucket list item for me? Now I have to digress a little bit, but I'm get back to what I want to tell you about the book. So a bucket list item for me would be traveling and would be food and culture. Those are bucket list things for me. The book was not a bucket list item. I have to be honest. It was not something that years ago, 10 years ago, even I thought that I would do. That kind of evolved later through the Calvin Lawrence Speaks piece and the passing of a few major members in my life, major people in my life. And then I thought the story has got to be told. And if I don't tell it, it won't get told. But where was I going with that? So yes, the book came about because I needed to tell some stories. And part of the deal was, and I didn't commiserate with you on this part, but maybe I did in a way. It was a 4-year journey. The first year I started writing. The second year I did no writing. I was in one of those funks. Yeah. And then a couple of people passed away, in particular my mom. And I thought, if I don't do the story, it will not get told. So I had the impetus after that to really get back on the stick and write. Now, the first thing you have to do, and there are probably some future writers here or people who are currently writing, is you got to start. Right? And if you don't start, you're not going to get. I had to start. I had to overcome inertia. I'm going to use a science term. And then I had to keep the momentum going. And once I got momentum, which was after that second run, and then I got to what I would consider, and I don't know what the tipping point is, what it was for you, Val, but for me, when I got to about halfway through, I had chapters, but they were incomplete, but I had chapters. And I had them to the point where, I think I can do this now. And once I got to that point, it was like, okay, now it's just a matter of when can you complete it? Let's start using or putting some target dates down. And 2024 was supposed to be the time it was that I'm going to get this thing done. And I pushed it through and got it done.
That's amazing. I love that. And I love that perseverance. And I think that's so true that it is this not necessarily linear journey where it's years in the making, but some years you write a lot more. And sometimes you take a year off because it's just, you don't know, like you can't like force that creative process. And like, at least for me, I completely agree with that where, mine was turning 40. I think that was my big thing of like every decade of my life. Like I always, I always journaled. Like I just love journaling. And ever since I was little, and I would like to go back on the previous year and be like, okay, what did I do? And like, where can I go from, this year? And so, but every decade I would make a big synopsis of the decade. And when I turned 40, I was like, you know what? I've been writing this book for a couple years now. I'm like, needs to be my synopsis now. Like this has to be it. So that was kind of, I feel like there is this like catalyst, like where you're writing, but then there's something that really will get you.
And then there's something that just triggers you. It's just it's like the biggest spark. You're right. I agree. And when you said 40, it made me think, and I keep leaving this off, but maybe I need to add this to my conversation when I keep talking about the book. And that is, so last year, November is my birthday month. Last year, I was going to turn 65. I turned 65. That was another catalyst to let's get this thing done because I need to get it done. So I think you're right. I think you have these things. It could be a number. It could be a year. 40 is a big number. 60 is a big number. 50 is a number. And you have these times. I'm going to go back real quick to my little bit of my journey. And I think it will tell part of maybe something that you might ask me about coming to Texas from Virginia. Yeah. There was a time when I got to a point, and it was kind of like that. It was a turning point or tipping point time in my life. I think I was about 28, but I was 5 years into my career. And I think it's like the 5-year mark or 5-year itch or whatever you want to call it. And it was like, there's got to be more to this than what I'm doing right now. Because, I don't know if you had a perfect progression from being a nurse to a nurse practitioner, and then you had this great smooth. Yeah, you're kind of like shaking your head. So I didn't have a great smooth progression, but it was like when that 5 years hit, and I was like, I'm in a dumbstrom or in the dumps in terms of, if this is what the rest of my life is going to look like, it's not going to be a very good life. So I needed to do something and to shake it up. And the shake up came after I kind of started looking at some things, and then I had some really good advice, and then I experienced this epiphany.
I love that. And I think that is so amazing about life, where like we think it is going to be this linear progression. Yes. And there's so many hills, so many valleys, and just kind of being able, I think maybe with, as we get older, we kind of are able to take that step back, but it's hard when you're in a valley to be like, okay, where do I go from here? Just the other day. Yeah. I thought my oldest is always so verbose. Like she always has been. And the other day
how old is your oldest?
She's 9. So,
okay.
I was, just kind of commiserating about like, oh, this book writing is it's a lot more time and work than I thought it was going to be, just the whole, like, I was just saying that to her, and she was like, Mom, you're right now in the dip. And I was like, what does that mean? And she was like, well, there's a dip. My teacher says when you're in the dip, you have to figure out how to get out of the dip. And I was like, oh, I really liked that visual. And I'm like, okay, well, if you're in a dip, where do you go from here? And, and so I just thought I'm like, oh yeah, well, and then I was fine. It was fine. I just needed sleep, that day. I was just kind of in a mood. But
I love that. I love that visual. I love that visual. Hey, I have to say, because I wrote it down, because I knew I was going to take some good notes. I know you're going to have things to teach me today that I need to remember so I can say them when I get out here and start talking some more. But so the dip that she talked about in the book, I talk about desert times. I use the word desert, and it's like I'm going through the desert, but how do I come out of the desert? And when I first thought I only had three of those in my life that were distinct, and I knew what they were. But Val, when I did the reflections and I had to start writing, I realized there were at least 7 of those in my life that I had to dip. I had the dip or the desert, and I went to go back. And like you said, when you're going through it, it's not fun. It's not, but you got to get through it. And it's how you get through it and what you learn from it, and then go on to the next thing. And that's really the purpose of, if the happy leader says anything, is the purpose of, you got to get through that stuff because the good stuff's on the other side. But if you stop out in the dip, if you stop out in the desert, you never get there. And so you got to go through it. It's like we all have to go through it. There's no nice, pretty, linear. Maybe some people have it. I don't know who they are. Maybe 1% of the population. But most of us have to go through all of this stuff before we can get to the good stuff.
Absolutely. And I think we learn so much in those times, even if it was.
Oh, man. What was it? Who was it? What was it? I was going to say, I was going to use a Yoda Star Wars term. So Yoda always talks backwards, and he says things in the opposite direction. So one of his statements is, failure, the best teacher is. Or in other words, flip it, the best teacher is failure. And if you use failure the right way, because some people, they get into failure and it's like, I can't do it. I'm no good. But if you learn from your mistake, it's just like a baby walking. Speaking of to mom love. So the baby's got to fail before the baby can succeed, right? And if you just pick them up all the time and you never let them do the fall and then they figure it out, this step, I can't take that big step, but I can take that little, I want to say baby step. You take that little step and then you can stay upright. Well, most of us have to figure that out. But if you go through those, when I think about my life, the greatest lessons have really come when I fail and when I didn't let it become a stop point. I made sure that I learned from it, and then I went ahead to the next thing. And yeah, it's incredible.
Absolutely. I think that's so, so true. And I think that, you were talking earlier about, like we have all of these things in our lives that like, or like I feel like, speaking to me of like with my education, for example, like I had my music professor was the first person in my life in college, in my undergrad, who embraced the growth mindset. And so, or like showed me the growth mindset and showed me that it's okay to fail. Because I think before that, I didn't know, like I thought failure was like, just, this is a bad thing, it's bad. And so, I don't know where, I think that it's just something that, we're always learning, we're always growing. And I wouldn't be where I am today without her, with embracing that growth mindset, because I also like struggled in school a lot too. I struggled. I just had to find a different way to learn. I think it was like, I did not know how to learn for the longest time. But once I did, I was like, oh, this is when I discovered how I learned and how I was passionate, or what I was passionate for. That's when things clicked.
That's when things started click. Right.
Yeah. So I feel like, that's just something that's so that I'm kind of going on a tangent with it, Calvin, but just I love how you're an educator and you inspire students, and now you're inspiring leaders, you're inspiring people, and that it's so important to know that it's just not yet, like that Carol Dweck mindset of the power of yet.
Right.
Now, Calvin, I would love to talk with you. And sorry, I feel like we're going in all these. I've always questions for you, and I also have a Texas trivia question, but I'm going to wait on that for a minute.
Okay. You will wait for that one. You will hit me with that one. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you for that. But I want to talk to you real quick about well, not real quick. I want you to answer this fully because I think it's great. But about positivity and empathy, and why is that so important? Because I feel like you exude that, and I just love that about you. So tell us, what's your secret sauce with that, Calvin?
Valerie, Val, my secret sauce is I make sure that I hang out with enough amazing people like you. You're one of them, that I can stay positive. So because there are a lot of people, I won't say a lot, maybe there are some people who are in the dumps. And if you hang out with them long enough, you can stay down in the dumps with them, and you may never come out of the dumps. My mom, I'll give you a quick story. There was a neighbor across the street. She's been gone for a long time. But she was the type of person who could find the bad in any good situation. Now that tells you a little bit about this lady. So if you went and you visit with her, because my mom would help her with things. Of course, remember, she's a nurse. So she would help her with things that she needed. And mom was, of course, like you, the caregiver from heaven. So she's doing all these things, but she can only spend so much time with that lady. And I didn't realize at the time why she would limit her time with that lady. I mean, she would do and then she would get out, because if you did stay in it long enough, you'll be down in the dumps with that same person, and you'll stay down the dump. The reason you have to stay positive, you have to stay positive, is because you want to grow. And I'll go back to the growth mindset. If you want to grow, you've got to stay positive. You got to find the good. There's a good in almost every situation, and there's a learning piece or something that you can grow from in almost every situation. And so if you can develop that kind of I'll say it's a lifestyle. And it really is. I've come into a lifestyle that is that way. I don't know if I was always that way, but it's kind of been an evolution. If you start doing that, then good things happen around you, and really it's contagious. So you get people who maybe would kind of like they're neutral, and you're around them, and you're doing things, and you're saying things, and you're complimenting them, and you're promoting whatever is good in that day. And then they start to really want to hang around you because it's contagious. They want to get that feeling. Just like I want to, if I'm down, I'm looking for some good people because I'm going to need some help for that day, maybe just to get through the day. It's so important in order for you to be successful to keep that. And then, and the other half of what you asked me was the empathy part, which I guess for me, it's kind of a natural thing. Now, I know that there are a lot of people who are not empathetic. They don't put themselves in someone else's shoes. But I don't know. I realized that about myself maybe years ago before I realized some other things, that I have a tendency to try to walk in someone else's shoes. I used to have this quote that when I was at the university level, and it came from the movie To Kill a Mockingbird with Gregory Peck, one of my favorite actors. Well, in that movie, there's a quote about, he tells his young daughter, Scout, you have to walk in someone else's shoes or put yourself in their skin before you can really understand what they're going through. And I always love that quote because I don't know what someone else is going through. You don't know what someone else is going through. We all are going through something, but I have to put myself, and that's the empathy part. And to empathy to the point where you don't get downtrodden or you get sad, but you can at least understand them and where they're coming from, and still offer a positive word or a way out, maybe even a solution. And I think if you can do that, you can balance those two things. You really can be, when it comes to a happy leader in my background here, you can really become the happy leader, and you can really become a happy person. And again, and I'll throw this piece in there. Leadership's not a title. You can lead anywhere you are. You lead by your example and by what you do with people, how you love on people.
So true. I think that's so true. And I love that, like, is who you're around, and also how
You're
you're
around.
showing how your actions are helping other people by the way you're acting. I think that's beautiful, and you're being that pebble and creating those ripples for others and showing others that that's lovely. And I was thinking when you were saying, Calvin, about going back to the adversity and all too of like Buffalo. Like my brother mentioned to me this, and I thought it was really interesting about Buffalo and storms, and how Buffalo will go towards the storm as opposed to run from the storm in order to get quicker through the storm, kind of like facing that adversity.
Storm. Right.
That's just kind of
facing it instead of running away. Right.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah. And then I was thinking, just tying it back to Texas and Buffalo. I just have to. Sorry, I just have to do one more Texas thing because there's a fun fact. There's a fun fact. Actually, there's two things, Calvin, real quick. Just same quick. There's a fun fact of if you have a baby outside of Texas, because this happened to me. I had two in Texas and one in the Chicago area. When I was in the Chicago area, the nurse asked me if I brought Texas soil, and so I could put under my hospital bed so the baby could be born on Texas
soil. Wow. I never heard that one, but I have to tell. I have to tell my son that just in case that happens to him one day and he's outside of the state and he has to make sure he's got some Texas soil and something. Well, I love it.
Make sure you have that. And then my other one was just maybe not a plea. I don't know if that's the right word, but for the when you get a Texas license, my husband, well, he wasn't my husband at the time, but like he is from Texas. I met him and I'm like, oh, I gotta get my license from Texas. And he said they give you a cowboy hat when you get your license at Texas. And I believed him. I'm like, I didn't get my cowboy hat.
You didn't get the cowboy hat. I didn't get told that, but I would have believed it too if I had come down here. because I had my Virginia license plate for a long time. And then
Yeah,
I found that if someone had told me that, I would have been walking around that building saying, okay, now where's my cowboy hat? Because I want a cowboy hat. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
know. So if anyone's
I see it.
listening that has some influence in that, that's my opinion. Cowboy hat. Anyway, so there's some silly things there, but I just think it's so neat
Yes.
to be able. I love talking with you, Calvin, and I love just the positivity you exude. And now, Calvin, before we wrap up here, I would love for you to share
Mhm.
with our listeners where they can find you, where they
Okay.
can learn more, and anything else you'd like to leave with us before we go.
Okay. Well, real quick, I'll try to be quick. So they can find me on the on the screen below us is the www.calvinlawrencespeaks.net. That's my website. You can also order the book from there, and the book will go straight to Amazon and come back. And so they can find me there. They can find me on LinkedIn. They can find me on Facebook. I think I'm on Instagram. There's probably a couple others, but the big three are LinkedIn. That's where we met, and then Facebook and Instagram. And then if I could leave you guys with something, it would be that relationships are so vital. They're so important. I think relationships plays into this. To mom is to love peace, because a mom is, is a greater relator as anybody. There was a guy, that a famous guy that said here recently. He said something about he wasn't worried about what anybody else thought, except as long as my mom loves me, and she does, I'm good. And I thought about that. I said, that's a big one, because your mom's gonna love you, come whatever, hell or high water. You can make all kinds of mistakes, you can fail, but mom's gonna love you. And then, but along with that, I think you got to do this relationship thing well as you get out here in the world. Do what you can. One of my, and I'll leave this end on this one. Favorite quote is by a guy, Arthur Ashe, another Virginian, by the way. He was born and raised in Virginia, and he always would say, "Start where you are, use what you have, and do what you can." It's a very simple quote, but it's a very powerful quote. It even goes to writing a book. It's like you start, use what you have, and then do what you can. And before you know it, I'll use the book as an example. The book is done, and you're moving on to the next, whatever it is. So I leave you guys with that. You guys can, it's just a wonderful thing. I love being on Val's show. I hope she'll invite me back one day when she's not too busy. And this has been a great day.
Oh, thank you so much, Calvin. I truly appreciate it. I absolutely love chatting with you. Let's do it again real soon. And I
You got to
hope
do it again.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll make sure I include all those links in the show notes as well, so people can connect with you as well as check out your website and your awesome book. So thank you again, Calvin.
Thank you, Valerie. I appreciate you. This is great.
Thank you.